See the pressure I'm being placed on already, and I haven't even started. Good evening, councillors. Good evening to everybody here in the public gallery. I'm pleased to announce that the ordinary council meeting is open. A little bit late, a couple of minutes late. It's just after 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 20th of February 2024. Welcome. At item 1 on the agenda, the declaration of opening, just wanted to say, of course, we acknowledge the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land, and also pay our respects to elders both past and present. Can I please ask everybody present here this evening, councillors included, please make sure your mobile phones are turned off or at least on silent for the duration of the meeting. The meeting is also being live streamed via the city's YouTube channel. Council meetings are public meetings, and any information you shall provide will be recorded and may be publicly accessible. The council chambers are not a parliament, and parliamentary privilege does not apply. That having been said, elected members and staff risk being held personally liable if their comments are defamatory or breach any duty of confidentiality. Statements made during council meetings are solely those of the person making them, and nothing expressed at a council meeting can be attributed to the city unless it is adopted by resolution of this council. The confirmed minutes of a council meeting are the official record of that council meeting. Verbatim minutes are not required. Nevertheless, the city publishes a record of the meeting. Recordings of council meetings must not be copied, republished or reproduced without the city's permission. At item 1, attendances, apologies. We have no apologies. I'm pleased to say that the full council of the City of Canning is here this evening. Thank you, councillors. Approved leave of absence. There are none. Disclosures of interest. Chief Executive Officer Michael Littleton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to item 3.1, declarations of financial interest, I have received none. In relation to item 3.2, declarations of interest affecting impartiality, I have received one from Deputy Mayor Amanda Spencer-Teo. In relation to CO 00224, the item detail is DLGSC CNLP 2024-2025 grant applications, Ranford Oval sports lighting installation and Rossmoyne Bowling Club lighting upgrade. The nature of the association is Councillor Deputy Mayor Spencer-Teo is a social member of Rossmoyne Bowling Club.
Thank you, CEO. Deputy Mayor, I'll raise that matter with you when the matter is up for discussion a little bit later in the agenda. Thank you. Announcements by the presiding member without discussion at item 4 tonight. There are none. Reports of delegates without discussion. There are none tabled this evening. Question time for the public. The time set aside for public questions is 15 minutes, which may be extended if necessary. For recording purposes, please state your name and address before proceeding to ask your question. If an answer cannot be provided at tonight's meeting, the question will be taken on notice and an answer will be provided at the next ordinary council meeting. In accordance with policy AD02, members of the public who have registered their interest to ask questions with the city's administration shall be called upon in the order in which registrations were received. Written questions will precede verbal questions. I now open public question time at, I've got 4 minutes past 6, unless my watch has stopped. And I do have a number of questions here. I will take the questions we actually have on notice. I've got Mr Johnston. Would you like to come forward, Mr Johnston, and address the council and ask your question yourself?
That button, yes. Thanks very much. Stephen Johnston, Delphi Court, Rossmoyne. My 3 questions relate to the implementation of policy LP09, tree retention and planting development, which was endorsed by council 2 years ago, actually on the 15th of February 2 years ago. My first question is, how many trees have been designated as worthy of retention by the city when considering local structure plans, subdivision applications and development applications? How many of those designated trees have in fact been retained after completion of the developments? And finally, did the city require any trees to be retained when considering the proposed development of 67 Riverton Drive West in Rossmoyne?
Thank you, Mr Johnston. In the first instance, I'll ask Director Graham Bride to respond. Director Bride.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. In response to questions 1 and 2, in relation to tree retention, it is not possible in many instances to retain trees as part of smaller residential developments. Where trees cannot be retained due to building coverage or access needs, the City ensures a deep soil zone is identified and an advanced tree for every dwelling proposed is planted as part of that development. Such trees will make a positive contribution to the tree canopy as they mature. The City has been more successful in retaining trees on larger development sites and through local structure plans, particularly where there are opportunities to locate those trees within future public open space or road reserves. The City also prioritises street trees and requires consolidated driveways and reduced crossover widths in instances where they abut street trees. Just recently, the state announced the revised State Planning Policy 7.3 Residential Design Codes, incorporating the Medium Density Code, including incentives to retain existing trees, as well as minimum planting and soft landscaping standards for new developments in the medium density areas. This builds on the apartment codes released in 2019 that include minimum requirements for deep soil zones, tree planting, and soft landscaping in higher density developments. In relation to question 3, 67 Riverton Drive, West Rossmoyne, the City notes that these trees have been removed from the site. At present, there is no statewide legislation that restricts a private landowner from clearing vegetation on a residential lot. Whilst a previous landowner did receive approval to subdivide the land, the current landowner is not bound to act on this approval. Any future development on this lot would need to provide trees as part of that application, which will need to be maintained throughout the life of the development.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Johnson. I have questions here from Mr Steve Walker of East Kennington. I have 2 questions here, Directors. I note that Director Graham Pride was to respond to them. In accordance with the City of Kennington's standing orders, just having a quick read through the first question, I consider it sarcastic, calls on conjecture, and I rule it out of order. I won't be reading that question to the meeting. I will then read Mr Walker's second question, which is perfectly fine. The question being, why did City of Canning not submit a response to the publicly advertised Metronet LXR Beckenham Station DA2 area consultation, in brackets he puts September /October 2023. Director Bride, just in relation to that second question.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. The City of Canning officers have attended the community reference groups that cover the Queen's Park, Cannington and Beckenham Station precincts and have been in constant liaison with the City of Gosnells. It should be noted that the design of the Beckenham Station and associated precinct is consistent with the standard and design of the Queen's Park and Cannington precincts and has been considered by Metronet in a strategic and integrated way across the corridor.
Thank you. Do we have Mr Graham Follington in the room this evening? Hello, Mr Follington. How are you? Hi, Graham. Come forward. Would you like to read your question to the meeting? Just wait till we turn the microphone on. Not quite yet. I'll just wait for that red light to go on, then we're off and racing.
Graham Follington, Teague Street, Wilson. I submitted 2 questions which were answered via email quite satisfactorily. The first question related to the intersection at Jamond and Manning Road and the continuing traffic problems that occur there, including and I sought accident statistics and was querying whether there was any connection. The continuing lack of any improvements to that intersection might have been linked to the continuing problems with Bentley 360 project. That was the first question.
Thank you. I'll get Director Bowe to respond to that, but just Graham, on behalf of the council, we share your concern, and we all would like to see some progress on the Bentley 360 project. Unfortunately, it's not one that the City of Canning Council has a great deal of influence over, but I think the whole community is looking forward to sod being turned at some point very soon. I certainly hope that is the case. Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd echo your sentiments on that. Between 2018 and 2022, there are 47 crashes recorded at that intersection, including 10 that required medical or hospital action. and a severity that required medical or hospital intervention. The City has submitted a traffic signal approval request to Main Roads WA in December 2023 and is expecting an outcome by March 2024. Dependent on the outcome, the City will then apply for black spot funding for the intersection upgrade to occur in the 2026-2027 financial year. The action on that particular intersection has been directly aligned to the Bentley 360 or Bentley Regeneration Program.
Thank you. Just your second question, Mr. Follington, did you want to read that to
Yes,
the meeting?
I was just asking that a no U-turn sign be placed at the eastern side of the T-junction at Bungaree and Manning Road. There is already a no U-turn sign on the western end. Allowing people to do a U-turn there, particularly at peak hour and in the afternoon, creates an almost inescapable situation where no one can move, no one can see anything either direction. How I haven't had an accident there, I don't know. But if someone is doing a U-turn in that spot in peak hour and with the number of cars that turn right into Bungaree, there's no vision by anyone in any direction effectively at times, and it's an incredibly dangerous situation. I don't know why there is a no U-turn sign on one side and not the other. It's quite confusing.
Thank you. Director Bowe, can I get you to respond to that?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Certainly that traffic movement is fraught with risk, but the City will lodge a request for the installation of a no U-turn sign with Main Roads, who are the approving authority for signage on
So the
roads.
City supports the position? Yep. Thank you. It's supported. We'll write to Main Roads, the responsible authority, and we'll see what we can get done there. You raised a very good point, and I thank you for coming down this evening.
Okay.
Thank you. We have Mel Harrison in the room. Mel, did you want to ask a question? You're just going to do the deputation? Okay, fabulous. All right, we shall then move on. Are there any further questions from the public gallery? Thanks, everyone. We shall move on then, and I shall close public question time, the time now being 10 minutes past 6 p.m. Thank you. At item 7 on tonight's agenda is the confirmation of minutes. The ordinary council meeting held on the 12th of December 2023, the recommendation is that those minutes be confirmed as circulated. The recommendation is on page 3 of the agenda and currently appears on screen. Can I have a mover, councillors, please, for that item? I'll move it from the chair. Councillor Second, you would be the seconder. Thank you. We'll put that item to the vote. Thank you, councillors.
The motion to confirm the minutes from the December meeting have been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you. At item 8, receiving of petitions, presentations and deputations. At item 8.1, petitions, we do have a petition this evening. The petition has been received from Mr M Genetti of Queen's Park. I shall read that to the meeting. The City's received a petition from Mr Genetti, the prayer of which reads, petition to cancel and relocate a 25-metre Optus 5G telephone tower due to be erected at Queen's Park Oval. We need your support to stop this from happening. The council has spent money already to beautify the park with Aboriginal art. Now we will have to look at a metal tower, a complete eyesore and a health concern. End of quotation marks. Councillors, the recommendation before you is that the petition be received by Council and referred to the CEO for action in accordance with clause 4.7 in brackets 3 in brackets D of the City of Canning Standing Orders, Local Law of 2015. The recommendation is also on page 4 of the agenda and on screen. Can I have a mover, please, for that one? Councillor Page, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Singh? Thank you, councillors. There's no need to actually speak to the matter. We shall, I think, put that straight to the vote. Thank you, Councillor Page.
The motion that petition be received has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. At item 8.2, presentations are a none this evening. At item 8.3, deputations, we have two this evening, the first of which is from Mr Stephen Johnston in relation to item IE 001 of 24, that being request for mature tree removal at 32 Silvertop Terrace in Willetton. Mr Johnston, you know the drill. Can I get you to please step forward and you have up to 10 minutes in which to make your deputation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. My name's Stephen Johnston, Delphi Court, Rossmoyne. I've attended a number of council meetings over recent years and read various old council minutes where verge tree removal requests were considered. And in most cases, those requests were rejected because council found that the evidence provided by the complainants of the tree's impacts on their properties was not grounds for removal under the city's long-standing policy ET 525. Against that background, I have read and reread the administration briefing for this item with increasing incredulity that it even got onto the agenda, because unlike previous such requests, there has been no evidence provided by the residents of a direct adverse impact on the property. According to the briefing, their request is simply based on one major presumption, that if a mature lemon-scented eucalypt falls down somewhere, in this case in Burrendar Park, that is sufficient grounds alone to indicate that the same species of mature tree somewhere else is also likely to fall, endangering lives and property. Now, if that presumption was true, given the large numbers of lemon-scented eucalypts growing in Perth, including the iconic 87-year-old trees that line Fraser Avenue on the way towards the War Memorial at Kings Park, we would be facing a major public safety crisis across the city because of the risk of falling trees. Rest assured, we aren't. So let's look at the facts of this matter. This Willetton tree has been inspected over the last 2 years by the city's Supervisor Urban Forest and has been the subject of 2 independent arborists' assessments. And they have all reached the same conclusion. The tree is healthy. It is in sound structural condition. It has a healthy root system. And there is, quote, no sound arboricultural justification for tree removal or canopy reduction pruning at this time. Now, in my view, that should be more than enough to conclude no further action is required on this request. But there is more evidence to support that conclusion. We also have the well-recognised Quantified Tree Risk Assessment, or QTRA, which quantifies 3 components to arrive at a risk rating: potential target, impact potential, and probability of failure. And as the briefing indicates, the QTRA rating for the lemon-scented eucalypt at Silvertop Terrace is 1 in 5 million. Now, I'm not a betting man, but those seem to me to be extraordinarily high odds against something happening. And it puts the tree at the lowest end of the QTRA low-risk category, which is defined as, quote, broadly acceptable, already as low as reasonably practicable. Let's put this into closer perspective. The 5 lemon-scented eucalypts in front of the council building that you all walked past this evening have the same low-risk rating as the tree at Silvertop Terrace, as do many of the mature and semi-mature trees on canning verges and public open spaces. Mr Mayor, I do appreciate that this council acts in effect as a court of final appeal for residents requesting verge tree removal, and probably always will. And that's really another admirable example of the high level of access that ordinary Canning residents like me can have at these meetings to all the councillors and the whole city executive. But I would have thought that there would have been some basic objective evidentiary standards to be met before such requests were escalated to the council meeting agenda, with all the extra work and therefore cost that is entailed in preparing briefings and work for governance. I think it's something that really should be looked at. The fact that very few such requests, have ended up here over recent years really speaks volumes for the patient and conscientious liaison that some councillors and certainly senior parks and environment staff have undertaken with residents to get a level of acceptance of the council's policy and of the critical importance of retaining mature trees in the city. In conclusion, councillors, I make 3 requests this evening. That you all vote in support of the administration recommendation. But even more importantly, that you recognise and publicly advocate whenever and wherever possible for the retention of mature trees, for the multiple reasons summarised, for example, only recently, 2 weeks ago, by Sabrina Hahn in her column in the West Australian, and that are set out in detail in section 1 of the city's award-winning urban forest strategy. To put it bluntly, Canning residents are going to have to come to accept that healthy, structurally sound mature trees must be retained, at least on public areas, because if they aren't, we will never achieve the very modest goal endorsed by Council of just 9.3% tree canopy cover within the next 15 years. And finally, I would request you bring all that supportive recognition to your consideration over the coming months to the revised and much improved draft of Policy ET 525, particularly the proposed consistent application of a financial amenity value to trees that is referred to in tonight's briefing. For example, the Silvertop Terrace tree worth an amenity value of $14,000. Money speaks all languages, and this amenity value will surely help elevate the recognition of trees as vital, valuable community assets. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Johnson, for coming along, and just for your information, we'll be bringing that item forward so you can actually see the discussion early in tonight's meeting. The second deputation we have is from Mel Harrison, who has come along representing the organisation Free the Hounds in relation to item NOM 001 of 24, notice of motion. Ms Harrison, thank you. You've already stepped forward. Can I get you just to introduce yourself to the councillors and then go ahead. Take your time. You have up to 10 minutes.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Mel Harrison. I'm from Chewett Hill, but as the Mayor said, I represent Free the Hounds, and I have some more supporters here. I guess, the reason that we are here is to speak about Cannington Track. Unfortunately, right now it has the name of the deadliest track in the country, which isn't something that we're very proud of here in WA. A bit of background on Free the Hounds is we are a greyhound advocacy group that are trying to educate the public on what beautiful dogs these are, and that the injuries that they suffer and the way that they're used as commodities is not acceptable in 2023 here in Australia or Western Australia. And apart from anything else, the biggest issue that we have is rehoming of these dogs. While they're not being killed, which is a big step forward, there is just simply nowhere for all of these dogs to go anymore, which in turn then also takes up the place of your regular Fido and, Grover that are staying at the kennels. It's an ongoing issue, and greyhounds are bred for purpose and one purpose only, which is racing. So, sorry, my phone's not working. I'm very nervous, I'm sorry. I'm not a very good public speaker. So.
Don't be nervous, take your time. You're doing a very good job.
These are the injuries that have and deaths that have occurred at Cannington Track over the recent years. And as you can see, there's been a big increase in those. Now, Racing and Wagering WA brought in what was called the Greyhound Injury Full Recovery Scheme, which meant that those dogs that suffered majority of those major injuries were actually kept alive. That was actually changed on the 1st of February. So what that means is, because there is no room for these dogs to move on once they finish racing, trainers and owners have their kennels full already of greyhounds. So when they break a leg now, the industry will still pay for the rehabilitation, but they will no longer kennel them, which is what Racing and Wagering used to do. So we fear that that number 60 there on that chart is now going to be euthanasias or dogs killed, because the trainers simply don't have the room for these dogs to go to. And Cannington is the biggest cause of these injuries, or the ones that we know about. The ones that happen off track, we don't know about. They don't report those. The ones that happen in public trialling, we don't know about those either. So, I mean, we could closed down, or not necessarily closed down, but if we looked at Mandurah and the issues they're having there, they spent $6.6 million on that track upgrade last year. That is an asset of the government's. They own Mandurah. They do not own Cannington. That is, the land there is leased off of the Agricultural Society for about $300,000 a year, whereas Bunnings pay over $1 million a year for the lease. So we have been asking for a long time for Cannington to be looked at. The issues that the University of Technology Sydney, when they came over in 2020, these are just some of the issues that they found. So the right imagery or the measurements weren't used because it wasn't from surveyed data. There was the crossfalls in the home straight, the northern turn, the back straight and the southern turn. So pretty much the whole track has problems. The track has tight bends and short straights, which the surface, it causes a problem for the transition of the track, meaning that it can't be smoothed out easily so that the greyhounds can find that momentum safely, because they go so fast. There's issues because it's too tight for them to get around. So they corner, crash in together and then fall over or get injured that way. There's another, starting boxes are, the locations are problematic. The injury rate for the 275 metre distance is far greater than all of the other distances. There's 5 different starting distances on the Cannington track. Okay, go the next one. Sorry, it's a funny. Now, the biggest issue that we believe is, and we've been told by former racing participants, because we do speak to the trainers aren't happy about what's happening to their animals on this track either. They lose money when they lose a dog, especially if it's a dog that's racing well. So, you know, it's everybody that's causing, or, you know, worried about it. So the top 35 mil of the track is critical to maintain the safety, because that's where anything that goes further down into the track, the water, anything else, that's where it's able to go through. So you have to make sure that that's the best possible, you know, way that it can be. But because it's broken like that or fractured like that, that means that the water can't get down, and then it just gets too hard and it dries out. And with this increase in temperatures, that's what we feel. In the UTS study, it also states that for the last 2 summer quarters, the injury rates have risen a lot higher. Yeah, you can go through those later if you want to and have a look. There's more information there. Next one. Okay, so we asked the WA Greyhound Racing Association, which is actually a government department. It sits directly under the Minister, whereas Racing and Wagering sits outside of the government, more like a Western Power or the Water Corporation. We asked them, because they are in charge of all the track maintenance, and we asked them, since the University of Technology have come and looked at the track data, has anybody been to make sure that the analysis has been done properly? Has it been looked at independently again by anybody else? And who has set the areas that they're allowed to work under? And nobody has. It's all been done by Racing and Wagering WA. Because when UTS came to look at it originally, the track data wasn't available, which is the moisture content, the firmness, things like that, wasn't available because the data had been collected incorrectly. So we know that since 2020, when they tried to look at it, subsequently still nobody independent has ever looked at it. So, and because Racing and Wagering, they are all paid off the back of these dogs. It is not in their interest to say, okay, we're going to halt racing, because that is where their salaries come from. I'm not saying that that's what they're doing, but this is why we strongly push for an independent body to come and have a look at it. And also, it was just that Racing and Wagering get the ultimate say. While WAGRA are in charge of the tracks, the Racing WA stewards get the final say on whether a meet goes ahead on any given night. And this is just, these are dogs that have been in kennels for a while. I'm also on a greyhound rescue group. I work with them. or volunteer for them. And these are the sort of conditions that the dogs come in, and with some of the injuries that they have. And this is why we also believe that kenneling them for long lengths of time isn't good for the dogs, apart from the issues that they have psychologically. And these are some of the kennels in WA where they would be kept for those long periods of time when they're rehabilitating. A broken leg can take up to 12 weeks.
You have just on 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm done now. This is just some more. And the last matter that we were concerned with is it is always advertised as family friendly. Cannington particularly, because they have their, end of year, New Year's Eve fireworks and all the rest of it. Children shouldn't be seeing this kind of carnage. We've had 4 dogs die. One broke its neck and was dead before it hit the ground. Just 3 weeks ago. 2 dogs were injured on Saturday night. We don't know the outcome of them yet, both at Cannington, one in race 6 and one in race 12. We presume broken back legs. And children were there, standing along the fence, running with them. If anything else, it's not a family-friendly, entertaining night out. So, thank you.
Thank you for coming along, and we will also be bringing that item forward, councillors, and for the convenience of those that are in the public gallery. Thank you. Thank you to you both for those deputations on those 2 items. At item 9, application for leave of absence, there is a recommendation before you, councillors. The recommendation appears on page 4 of tonight's agenda. The recommendation is also on screen. The recommendation is that Council grant Mayor Patrick Hall a leave of absence for the period the 20th of March to 18th of April 2024 exclusive, and I will be happily handing over the reins to my very capable Deputy Mayor if that request is approved. The recommendation, as I said, is on page 4. Can I have a mover, please, for that item? Thank you, Councillor Kunza. A seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Kunza, did you want to ask any questions, Deputy Mayor?
Do I need to declare an interest?
I don't think so, no,
Sorry,
I
that was a
wouldn't think
joke.
so, no.
Sorry, I have nothing to say.
Councillors, I'd like to just put the item to the vote, if you don't mind. I will call for the vote. Thank you.
The application for Mayor Hall's leave of absence has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you, councillors. We move to item 10, questions by members, of which due notice has been given. There are none in this evening's agenda. At item 11, items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery. We have IE 001 of 24, request for mature tree removal at 32 Silvertop Terrace in Willetton. The officer's recommendation is on page 69 of the agenda and is also on screen. Can I have a mover, please, for that item? Councillor Kunza, thank you very much. Can I have a seconder, please, for the item? Seconder. Councillor Page, thank you for seconding that item. Deputy Mayor, would you like to start us off, please?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kunza, forgive me.
Yes, Mayor. Look, I speak in favour of the officer recommendation, but it will be hard to speak, follow on from Mr Johnson, who provided a great deputation on why council should support the officer recommendation here. And with no disrespect to the Darby family and their concerns, the fact of the matter is we can't endorse cutting down this tree. Now, lemon-scented gum trees have been characterised recently as a weed. They are considered weeds in Banksia woodland environments because they kill the understory, as I've stated many times over the last year or so. Sadly, in Canning, 95% of the Banksia woodland has been cleared, and so sadly the weed issue is actually not a big issue in Canning at all. These trees are in suburbia, helping cool down the local environment, providing shelter and foraging habitat for the local fauna. Now, ironically, all the roads in this part of Willetton are actually named after different trees. Silvertop Terrace, where the tree is located, is named after Silvertop ash, which is a type of eucalypt that's endemic to southeast Australia. The reality is, when people don't like certain trees, they say they're not native, but these are native trees to Australia, and they shouldn't be demonised because they're not originally from Western Australia. Lemon-scented gum trees are quite common in Western Australia today. There's 857 of them, in the city of Canning alone. Endemic fauna like our black cockatoo populations have learnt to consume their nuts because a significant proportion of their natural foods are being consumed for development. In my 8 years on council, I've constantly advocated to protect trees in these situations, and long ago council took a philosophical point of view, a philosophical position that we wanted to improve our local environment because we as a local government rank so poorly in terms of our level of tree canopy cover. We're investing millions of dollars into our urban forest strategy, but it's absolutely critical to that strategy that we protect what we have. An urban forest is just that. It needs to have trees within our suburbs and not just in our parks. Now, trees, one of their critical functions is they drop leaves and they drop limbs and they drop branches. That's a function of a tree. There's nothing specific about this particular tree, no incident, no past incident that would warrant its removal. Now, to remove a tree because it performs its functions as a tree is to say, as Mr. Johnson said earlier, that we need to remove all the eucalypts across the city of Canning because they might drop their branches. Now, to do so would be devastating to our local biodiversity. Now, in the area, within a kilometre of this particular tree, there's many mature eucalypts on verges and in the parks. Most of the trees are older than me and probably many people in this room. Just a few streets away from Silvertop Terrace is Spotted Gum Way. There's probably 12 to 15 large mature eucalypts along Spotted Gum Way. Some of them are lemon-scented gum trees. Next to that is Adern Park, which is littered with large eucalypts that are under the exact same circumstances as this tree. The potential for it to drop a branch, or if you were to make the argument to fall over. None of these trees, as to my understanding, have ever shown any reason why they would do that. Now, and if you go to Perth's newer suburbs, Harrisdale, Alkimos, the data shows that bird life aren't going to these suburbs because there are no trees. It's vitally important that we retain mature trees, and that's what we need to do as a local government that ranks so poorly, is protect what we have. And that's what, as I've said previously, that's what we have committed to do as a council. Now, I speak on this item because I believe it's important to not only reinforce council's position, but to show our solidarity with staff, because staff need to know that council supports them when they're enforcing council's policies. And this is our policy, and that's to protect these mature trees. So I ask for council to unanimously agree with the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kunza. Councillor Page.
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. I might just say just a few words. I fully support Councillor Kunza's point of view on that, and I know there had been some questions on this, but I'm really pleased with the information I heard in the deputation. But one relevant matter that's only just come to my attention just recently, and the attention of this council, is an environmental disaster on our doorstep, and that is the proliferation and the spread of the shot hole borers in this area. And for councillors would have perhaps seen questions to some answers to some questions being distributed earlier today, but in the last little while, just in the last couple of months, the City of Canning has now lost 42 mature trees from shot hole borers. And we have had a proliferation in almost all of the suburbs contained in the City of Canning that is not contained. We now have quarantine zones across Western Australia, across the Perth metropolitan area, prohibiting us from moving green waste from one city area to the other. And it is good reason why right at the moment we should be doing everything we can to protect the canopy that we have. Because as one of the councils with the lowest percentage of canopy cover in the Perth metropolitan area, and being a state where we probably have I think the lowest in Australia nationally, this proliferation, this infestation, this plague of shot hole borers, I think we are just only tipping the iceberg of what is ahead of us. And I don't want to cause any alarm, but I'm raising it with the State Council of the Western Australian Local Government Association. It'll be dealt with at its next meeting. We need to take a position on it, but it's one very, very sound reason why we really as a council need to be doing everything we can, as Councillor Kunza rightly said, to support our staff, to support our own position as a council, to support the policies we put in place so that people realise that once we have a policy position, it really means something, and that we can come together unanimously to say to our community that we know that we're all just passing through, aren't we? Some of these trees are, decades old or 100 years old or less, but people are just moving through. And I have empathy for people that don't feel quite as enamoured with our tree canopy as most of us do, but there's no reason to start pulling out trees for no good reason. And Councillor Kunzer also made a very good point around risk management. And I was a state government senior risk manager for some years, and it's about consequence and likelihood, isn't it? The likelihood of a limb falling off a tree is incredibly low. And the consequence, if it did happen, well, is also incredibly low. I think if you're doing a risk assessment on any particular tree, I'm not certain that we would be unilaterally pulling out trees as people have certain concerns that aren't supported by evidence. So I too share the sentiment of Councillor Kunzer. I do hope that this council can find a unanimous position on this one item and put it to bed very quickly. Thank you, councillors. Anyone else wish to speak on the item before we put it to the vote? Yes, Councillor Hearn, thank you.
I just want to assure Mr. and Mrs. Darby that a great deal of time and consideration has gone into this by both the city staff and by the councillors themselves to try and assess the risk that they are feeling from this tree. And I'm quite satisfied that the city staff has gone to great lengths to explore the level of risk posed by this tree, and it is simply not possible to have a tree canopy in a suburban locale without any risk whatsoever. So I'm going to support the office's recommendation.
And I thank you for making that point. It's a very sound one, that people don't realise how much work is done behind the scenes before a matter is brought to this council for its consideration. There's been a great deal of time invested by the city's officers. It's a very fine point, Councillor Hearn. I thank you. Councillors, let's put the... Councillor Singh.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Just would like to understand how much time and effort and if any money has been invested to bring this item to council. And the reason for my question is if we could look into our policy and place or update our policy where we have some minimum criteria for such requests to come to the council so we can save the time. I mean, it has to be a very genuine request. I appreciate that these requests comes to the council and people are supported if they do not agree with the officer recommendation, but we do need to find some sort of balance so that not every request comes through. It needs to be supported by some strong evidence. That's the reason for my question.
Yeah, good point. I think, I'm not sure if Director Bowe is going to be able to answer the question tonight. He may need to take that on notice, but I guess to answer the question, he's going to have to invest more time going right back through that case to dig out every hour and all these staff emails and try to work that out on. I think we all understand the issue. I think you've made a very good point.
All I'm requesting is please look at the ways if this council can help or provide more powers to the officers to make a final decision rather than every matter coming to the council.
And that echoes the sentiment expressed earlier in the deputation. Thank you, Councillor Singh. CEO, can I ask that occurs, or we give some greater consideration to whether matters like this really should be coming before the council, and what controls have been put in place to make sure that only those that are necessary absolutely for a decision of the full council come before the council. Thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, just a question. We are currently reviewing ET 525, are we not?
Director Bowe.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. I anticipate that the draft will be presented to the elected members over the next couple of months.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, let's put the item to the vote.
Motion IE-00124 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you, Governors. Thank you, Council, for your consideration of that item. We move on to the other item that has been brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery. That is Notice of Motion 001 of 24. The officer's recommendation is on screen. I shall move the item from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please, for the item? A seconder, Councillor Second. Thank you very much. Appreciated. Councillors, I just propose to read through the notice of motion at the moment. The recommendation is in front of you. The original Cannington Greyhound track was established in 1974, and that's half a century ago. And I do take the point that a submission distributed to Council earlier today seemed to indicate that was actually established with some considerable support from the council at that time. But I would make the point that that was a half a century ago, and I think sentiment has changed markedly in the community. Statistics recorded and reported by the sport itself, and these are taken from on-track steward reports, confirm that in 2023 the Cannington Greyhound Track had an unenviable record, leading the entire nation in the number of fatalities recorded across more than 60 registered tracks in Australia. In 2022, regrettably, the Cannington Greyhound Track reported the second highest fatality rate in the nation, and in 2021, amongst more than 60 tracks nationally, it was ranked 5th for fatalities out of more than 60 registered tracks. So they're the fatalities, not including issues in relation to injury and all the matters dealt with earlier by the deputation from Ms Harrison. The statistics illustrate an alarming rate of death at that Cannington track. That simply must be reviewed and investigated. The City of Canning Council has adopted long-held and consistent views in support of animal welfare. These consistent views have included the establishment of the impounded companion animal pro-life policy from back in 2016 to protect the lives of unclaimed impounded dogs and cats. Our support and funding of initiatives to preserve black cockatoos, including the funding of elevated automatic watering platforms, the rescue and repatriation of 60 turtles during the Wharf Street Basin project, and that occurred during works at that site, and more recently, really terrific project which has been adopted by this council, and that was in relation to fully funding the rescue and translocation of a large number of kangaroos from city-owned land in Canning Vale. The conduct of greyhound racing and the alarming death and injury toll, which is supported by data, is contrary to the consistent views of our council. And to date in 2024, in less than 8 weeks of racing, already 4 fatalities have occurred at the Cannington track, and that leads the nation already at such an early point. And that's not including the dogs are actually significantly injured. And I won't run through all of the fatalities and go through them in song and verse, but some of them have been absolutely dreadful. And as the point made earlier in the piece by Ms Harrison, these are occurring in front of members of the public and often young children who are lining the track innocently to watch dogs running around the track and then have catastrophic injuries and often fatalities occurring right in front of them. It's my view, and a view shared by others, that, look, it is not within the remit of local government to call for the banning of greyhound racing as much as many would like us to do, but we also, of course, have the Canning Vale kennel area adjacent to and inside the city of Canning, and I guess if we had a breeder or somebody running a business in that Canning Vale kennel area that had suffered or experienced or reported the number of fatalities and injuries in that business as occurs at this track, we would rightly as a council be calling for at least a review. And that's all I'm proposing tonight. I'm calling simply for a review of that track. I think there is evidence to suggest that compared to other tracks nationally, there is some problem here with either the track surface or the design of the track. How that's funded and how that independent review might take place is not up for us to determine, but certainly I think it's within the remit of this council to simply write a letter or call for me or authorise me to write a letter to the relevant minister raising it as an issue, and as a responsible local government to simply call for a review. I would have hoped that we would not have to, that the sport itself would be calling for the review or enacting the review, or the department itself responsible for gaming and racing in this state would have already been monitoring the compelling evidence brought on by these statistics, and knowing the history of this racecourse would have already called for that themselves. They have not. So this is not beyond our remit. Simply writing a letter and raising it is something that I think a good council should do. And that's all I'm asking for this evening, is for council support to write a letter to the Minister to raise our concerns about this particular track, not all tracks, but this particular track, which happens to be inside the City of Canning, and to ask for his consideration of an independent review. And I don't think it's too much to ask, and I think it would be something that our community would support. That's it, councillors. I won't go any further. Thank you. Councillor Second, have you got anything you'd like to add in relation to this item?
No, I've got nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or anyone wish to speak? Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. You said repeatedly that all you're asking for is a review. I don't have an issue with that. I certainly want to make it very clear that I'm not a supporter of greyhound racing anywhere, let alone on our front doorstep. However, my concern is with item 2B, that you're actually calling for an immediate suspension of racing. I have concerns with that because I don't think we're staying in our lane for making that call. And I respectfully ask if you would mind if I amended your notice of motion to remove the immediate suspension and just call for the review and write the letter.
I think we should put that to the vote, and I think we should discuss that. I don't think, to answer your question, that it's beyond the remit of local government to write a letter asking for an immediate suspension, but certainly happy if you'd like to amend it, to take your amendment, and then we'll discuss it as a group. And I don't think that that is a minor amendment. It certainly changes the intent.
That's fine. Yeah, so I would propose to remove from the immediate suspension, and just so to call for an independent review. So pretty much that entire top line except for to call for.
Thank you. Governance, I'll get you to make that interim change. Thank you.
Excuse me, Deputy Mayor, can I clarify, do you want to remove all of 2B?
No, just the top part that
just
says
the top
to call
line
for the immediate suspension. So it'll say, sorry, Deputy Mayor, go ahead. Sorry, I'll come back to you, Councillor.
So to keep the first two words to call, then remove the rest of the top line and leave an independent review.
To call for an independent review.
Yep.
Just remove the 2 and 2.
We're removing calling for the suspension. Yeah, we will. It's not. That's not written. That's not in proper English to call for.
Probably want to take out is
review
undertaken.
is undertaken. CEO.
Everyone hear me? I'm suggesting that that your alternative would be to call for an independent review of the Cannington Greyhound track to identify the factors contributing to the unacceptable level of greyhound deaths and injuries at the Cannington track.
Probably don't need Cannington track twice, but yeah, that's fine.
Deputy Mayor, you happy with that? I'll just wait till we've got it up on the screen.
The amendment first.
And just remove Cannington track at the end. At the Cannington track.
Deputy Mayor, you happy with that?
Yes.
Councillors, before we can discuss the amendment, it would need to be seconded before we can move on. If anyone wishes to second it. Councillor Page, thank you. Deputy Mayor, did you want to discuss the proposed amendment?
If I may, just briefly, I am a huge advocate of all levels of government sticking in their lane. And I think also an issue here is the potential financial ramifications if the track loses, if they were to agree to suspend it, which I doubt they would. If they lose money, are they going to then turn around and try and seek compensation from the city? I also think that why stop here if we're going to call for suspension? We have several vape shops along Albany Highway, should we call for those to be closed down as well? I think this is an interference with the landlord and tenant agreement, and I think our lobbying should be focused more at the landlord rather than the tenant if there was an opportunity for us to do so. So I have absolutely no issue writing a letter, and I have absolutely no issue with calling for an independent review, but the issue, as I said, I have is calling for an immediate suspension. I just don't think that we have the powers, and quite honestly, I don't think that we would be taken very seriously asking the state government to do that. So, councillors, ask for your support. I think it is something very minor, and it just does still achieve what I think we're set out to do. I just think it just removes that little bit of ambiguity from the notice of motion. Thank you.
Councillor Page.
I agree with Deputy Mayor Spencer-Teo, and that I think this amendment is appropriate and still achieves what you're hoping for it to achieve.
Thank you. I'll just speak against the amendment. I don't agree that it's. I don't agree with what was said. I think we're getting a bit bogged down on financial considerations, and I would welcome the Deputy Mayor bringing to this council matters that she believes that are worthy of this council considering in regards to vapes and anything else you would like to bring to this council. We would consider it as we're considering this item. I don't think it's beyond the remit simply to call for it. I mean, we're not calling for the banning of greyhound racing. There are 2 other tracks within 100 kilometres of this track. There's one in Northam. There's also one in Mandurah. So I guess the racing in the short term would then be funneled out there. I don't agree that economic concerns should override animal welfare concerns. That is not in keeping with what a good council would do. Will we be taken seriously? Well, we should do, shouldn't we? Because we're the first council to use its voice to call for reform in the animal welfare sphere. And you know what? There's no point being an elected member of this council and being too frightened to have a strong view. And so, you know, I might be criticised for coming out and we may wish to effectively water down the motion, but I was elected to this council before I was the mayor on the basis that, you know what, I would represent not my own personal views but those of the community, and we have a number of those people here tonight, and I think all of us know that sentiment has changed around this industry. And just in the time that I wrote this notice of motion, 2 more dogs appear to have been significantly injured in the last few days at this Cannington track. So I don't think calling for a suspension until that review is completed is beyond the remit. The Deputy Mayor might be quite right. It may not happen, but I think we'll be taken seriously. I hope that by calling for that tonight, that we might actually commit to and encourage a conversation in the community and in the media that will draw attention to what's happening here. I don't think we can just close our eyes to what's happening. The track is 500 metres from where we are today. We are racing there again on Friday of this week. I don't think it's too much to ask that we simply ask that whilst that independent review is being undertaken, that racing is suspended. I think that would be sensible. So I would hope that council doesn't feel that we should water it down any further. I'm simply writing a letter to the Minister. Yes, they may not listen to us, but that will be on the state government to either make that decision themselves or not. But I think as a council, we would have then done what we are required to do as community leaders and have the courage of our convictions to state a case for change. And that would be simply to suspend racing until that review is undertaken. So I speak against the amendment, and I hope that council will share that view and that we go back for the sake of people that care about dogs and animal welfare, and we simply write a letter to the Minister calling for him to suspend racing. And if he doesn't do that, we have done what we can do and we will leave it there. But I'm asking you for your support tonight, so I'm speaking against the proposed amendment. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak either for or against? Thank you. Deputy Mayor, did you want to close?
No, I don't think there's any need to. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. We'll put the item to the vote. Now, we're only voting on the amendment here. So if you support the amendment, you will vote yes. If you don't support the amendment, obviously the obverse. Thank you, councillors.
The Deputy Mayor's amendment to items, NOM 001-24 has been lost. Has been carried with 7 voting for the motion and 4 voting against. Those voting.
Can I just ask, you sure about that? I think it's the reverse of what you're saying, isn't it? Aren't there 3 in favour of the amendment and 8 against the amendment?
Apologies, Mr Mayor, I was looking at the wrong votal results. So the amendment to motion NOM 001-24 has been lost, with 4 voting for the motion and 8 voting against. Those voting against the motion, councillors Bain, Kunza, Parkinson, Rodriguez, Sakon, Singh, Tuchek and Mayor Hall.
Thank you. We revert to the substantive motion, councillors. I've already spoken on the matter and I really don't propose to say any more about it. Does anyone else wish to ask a question or say anything before we put it to the vote? I'll go to Councillor Singh. Sorry, Councillor, I forgot to get back to you earlier. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question to the CEO. What is the reason behind no officer comments on this item?
CEO.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Singh. Look, this is a matter that has been brought to the council by Mayor Hall. It is his, as he's entitled to do. This is not really something that that the city in itself was able to guide the council on. That was the subject of my email to council in response to questioning, and that was the way that we presented the matter to council.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Just a question. You, as the Mayor of the City of Canning, can write a letter without council's approval, can you not?
Yeah, absolutely I can.
So
the question is why have I asked for this?
No. My question is, if this doesn't get carried tonight, would you still write the letter anyway?
No, I wouldn't actually. No, I wouldn't. I would leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A couple of questions, if I may. Through you to the CEO, did the city have a meeting with Racing WA or the Greyhound Rescue volunteers recently, and are you allowed to, or can you provide any insights? Thank you.
CEO.
Thank you, through the chair, for the question, Councillor Bain. I did have a meeting with representatives from Greyhounds WA on Thursday of last week. They sought to provide some clarity to the city in response to the recent media reporting of Mayor Hall's position. I sought and suggested to Greyhounds WA that they review the notice of motion and to provide council with a briefing note on their position. They didn't. We didn't really talk about much other than that. And since the Greyhounds WA have actually provided a briefing note which has now been distributed to elected members, and Racing WA have also provided their position for council's consideration.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. Councillor Kern, yes. And I'll come back to you, Councillor Singh.
Am I allowed to speak against now?
Yes, of course you are.
Okay.
Yep.
So I would say that while my personal values are completely aligned with this notice of motion, as a councillor, I'm compelled to consider whether it is in the best interest of the City of Canning. The considerations I've brought to this discussion are: is it the best approach? Are there other approaches available? Will there be any unintended consequences and unanticipated consequences of the proposed approach? And is this the best timing? As the proposal has come upon us quite suddenly, I'm of the view that we have not adequately considered alternative pathways and unintended outcomes, whether the advocacy were to be successful or not. In particular, I question the impact of such advocacy on our relationship with cars and the incumbent state government. Clause 23 states the government does not have an appetite to ban greyhound racing. I believe we know the outcome of this advocacy is unlikely to be successful. The likely outcome may be to shame and pressure the government, and I question the wisdom of such an approach. We have not explored the likely outcomes of such advocacy being successful on the City of Canning. Economic, potentially a city-centric growth site, difficult to repurpose, and potentially the loss of the Canning Show. Finally, it must be said that such advocacy may create a perception among the public due to Mayor Hall's nomination for pre-selection in the federal seat of Tangney. It is my duty as a councillor to ensure we as council do not create an opportunity for the public to perceive a conflict of interest. In closing, my personal ethical views on this industry are entirely aligned with the intent of the notice of motion, but I am not satisfied that this proposed approach and timing for the council is the best one.
Thank you, Councillor Hearn. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to the CEO. The scenario raised by Deputy Mayor, in case the government responds to the suspension of racing and the independent review doesn't find anything wrong, in that scenario, does City lands in hot water where it opens up the door for racing to sue us for damages for the suspension of racing? I mean, just would like to know the comments in terms of legal advice. Are we opening doors for Racing WA or some other organisation to sue us?
CEO.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the question. Fairly hypothetical. Look, I would say no. The city is not the decision maker in this on this matter, and the wording of the notice of motion simply seeks for the city to write to the minister expressing a view. I think the city is entitled to express a view, as is the mayor in this instance. So I would say that I can't see that there would be a liability that would vest to the city for whatever decision was made. It is not our decision to make.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak before I close? Yes, Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a question that I was going to ask, and I thank Councillor Hearn for raising it. A question to yourself, if I may. Did you contact or consult with CARS before putting this norm together, Mr. Mayor?
Did I? No, I didn't. Thank you. Look, I will speak in...
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. So through you to the CEO, could there potentially, should this norm be successful, this is to the CEO through yourself, be any sort of negative impact on the relationship with CARS? Thank you.
CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, our relationship with CARS is strong. Again, the Mayor has sought to express a view. He is seeking council support to write a letter. I think, I am sure that our relationship would extend beyond this particular matter. I haven't sought to seek out CARS, and to be honest, I don't think that there's a reason to at this point in time.
Thank you, councillors. In the absence of anyone wishing to vote, I might just close debate, if that's okay. I will say a few words. I said I probably wouldn't, but there have been some questions asked. And Councillor Hearn, can I say I thank you for your integrity and courage in asking some of those questions. And I know sometimes it's not always easy doing so. I just wanted to, first of all, just talk about public perception was raised about my proposed nomination for the federal seat of Tangney. And I can say hand on heart, that's not anything that entered my mind on this. I'm a former CEO of the Dogs Refuge in Shenton Park. My wife worked previously in an animal welfare as a volunteer in an animal welfare capacity, and has actually assisted at one point the state government in crafting their puppy farming legislation. So this is about animal welfare for me, and I can tell you also hand on heart, I have had nothing but threats and abuse since I actually opened up this debate. I probably expected that to happen, but I have been trolled unmercifully day and night since that story broke from people in the industry and, you know, people I guess, outside of the industry since it broke. So I actually don't think there's any votes in it. In fact, history would show that in New South Wales, the Premier himself was ousted, and they believe that was on the back of a stance to ban greyhound racing in that state. So that is actually the history of it. So absolutely not. But I'm very happy to answer the question. The state government doesn't have an appetite, I wouldn't think, to ban greyhound racing in Western Australia, but I guess as public figures, by raising these issues and try to encourage some public debate on them is possibly a good thing. And I know from my very limited involvement in government that putting any pressure on any government, they are reactive to that sort of pressure. And as I said previously, it has always been my approach to try to confront issues that are sometimes difficult, but that is why we were elected here. You all, I think, at times thought that you would stand up here with courage and defend the position of our community, and I think none of us would argue that the community has now turned its mind against greyhound racing. As far as economics there at the track, which was raised, I would make the point that my belief is that greyhound racing now at Cannington has actually removed any fee to enter the track. It's now free. So that might give you some indication of the waning support for it. And I'll probably say just in closing too, just to boil it down to the tin tax, simply asking for a letter to be written. The implications of the letter, if the state government chose to suspend racing there, I guess they would do so with good reason. That would be for them to make that decision. I have an extraordinarily good relationship with CARS and the CEO, Diane Beggs, and this, I feel, will not change that at all. Racing is just a leaseholder there. They're a tenant there. I don't think that'll change that relationship at all. But I would take the point and reiterate it. The councillors sometimes as public figures have to say the things that are hard to say, and they do so without fear or favour. And I've said it without fear or favour. A few moments ago, council decided not to support the amendment to this, which would have watered it down. I think to now defeat it, to actually essentially defeat the motion entirely, would be entirely detrimental to our reputation. I say that quite genuinely. We took a decision not to water down the motion, to now actually, now that we've brought it back to the table as a substantive motion, to now vote against it and defeat it totally would be, I don't think, in the interests of this council. And also on that, we've had some of the people that have spoken have, and I know they're genuine, said they care very much about animals and animal welfare. So I can't see anybody winning tonight by this council now voting against this substantive motion. Please allow me just to write a letter to the Minister. Where that goes, who knows, but I then would propose to drop it and accept the umpire's decision, and we just move on as a council. I've raised it. It needed to be raised, and now we move on. But I hope for your support. Thank you. Let's put the matter to the vote. And this is a substantive motion.
Motion NOM 001-24 has been carried. 10 in favour, with Councillor Hearn voting against the motion.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Thank you for that. We shall move on to item 13.1. And for those in the public gallery that are interested in those items, you're now free to leave. You don't have to stay for the remainder of the council meeting, which could go for some time. Thank you. At item 13.1, the responsible officer being the CEO, Mr Michael Littleton, the first item being OC 002 of 24, the title of the report being Preliminary Land Optimisation Investigation, Herald Avenue in Willetton. The officer's recommendation appears on screen, also appears on page 7 of tonight's agenda. Councillors, can I have a mover for that item, please? Councillor Bain, thank you. A seconder. Councillor Kunza, thank you. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, I support the officer's recommendation and option 4, which you put forward to proceed with the demolition, which will not only reduce the crime and safety risk at the site, but also maintenance costs, and provide us as a council with an opportunity to investigate and have a look at what opportunities and potential investments we can make in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Councillor Kunza.
I echo Councillor Bain's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the item before we put it to the vote? Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. An absolute majority is required, councillors, just for the record.
I have one more vote, please. Motion OC002-24 has been carried by absolute majority with all 11 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. We move to item 13.2 on tonight's agenda. It is CC001 of 24, the title of the report being Lease Renewal, Telstra Corporation Limited, Lot 78, Bannister Road in Canning Vale. The responsible officer being Miss Lorraine Driscoll, the Director of Corporate and Commercial. The officer's recommendation appears on page 14 of tonight's agenda and is on screen. May I have a mover, please, for that item? Deputy Mayor, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Page, thank you, Councillor Page. Deputy Mayor.
I support the officer's recommendation and have nothing to add. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Page, anything to add? Nothing to add. Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak on the item? We shall put it to the vote.
Motion CC-001-24 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
We move to CC002 of 24, the monthly financial report from December 2023. The recommendation is on page 21 of the agenda and is on screen. Can I have a mover, please, for the monthly financial report? Councillor Kunza, thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Spencer Teo. Councillor Kunza.
I've got nothing to add.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Nor do I. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Thank you. We'll put the matter to the vote.
Motion CC002-24 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you, Governance. Item 13.3, Mr Graham Bride, the Director of Planning and Development, is a responsible officer. It's PD 001 of 24. The report title being Initiation of Scheme Amendment number 15 to Local Planning Scheme number 42, being Lot 500 in brackets number 81, Ranford Road, Canning Vale, amending the reserve classification from public open space to environmental conservation. Can I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Kunza. Deputy Mayor.
I support the officer's recommendation and have nothing to add. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Kunza.
Yes, I also support the officer recommendation. Lord, this is a significant step. If you've never read the local biodiversity strategy, I encourage you to do so. Unfortunately, Canning is starting off from a low base, but this is one of the specific action items of the local biodiversity strategy that Council endorsed many years ago, but until this point, it's never been enacted. This site is one of the few undisturbed locations left within the City of Canning. I know I've harked on about it a bit, so I won't bore you too much, but with such limited Banksy woodland left in the City of Canning, providing extra protection to it by rezoning this land to environmental conservation, it's a significant step and helps protect it for future generations. Through this journey, I've learned a lot of people don't actually know what Banksia woodland is. It's not just Banksia plants. It's a rich ecosystem of different plants that provides habitat for local fauna, and it's critical. You can't replace it. Miss Mawson, Mr Johnson, others have provided very detailed deputations over the last 12 months, and they've gone into detail about how it's irreplaceable. And that's what we're doing by providing extra protection. But also more than that, in coming years, the city will be revegetating the degraded parts to provide complementary vegetation to help local animals. That can't be brought up to the standard that it should be in, but we can do our best. But yeah, I'm very proud of the city for doing this, and I think that we should all be happy for this moment. So I'd ask for you to unanimously support this officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Kunze. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Kunz's comments, when does the city expect revegetation efforts to begin? Thank you.
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We have some money in this year's budget to commence some preparatory works for the revegetation of Bush Forever site in that area, Councillor Bain. It is only preparatory works at the time. I would imagine next financial year, subject to budget allocation, is likely.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. In the absence of anyone speaking against the matter, Councillor Parkinson, you speaking against?
I'm not speaking against, I'm just asking a quick question. There's been quite a bit of roadworks in support of a road on Ranford Road there. What will that look like once this, if this motion is carried? What will that look like, i.e. traffic lights, etc.?
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And there'll be no change to the existing road infrastructure. The first element or the first portion of the Jandakot Eastern Link Road has been constructed will intersect with Ranford Road and will service the Ranford Metronet train station. But there'll be no further changes to the road network, and certainly not after this amendment is endorsed.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. Thank you. Shall put the matter to the vote.
Motion PD 001-24 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you, councillors. We move to page 91 of tonight's agenda. It's IE 002 of 24, the report title being Tender FM.035.196 for Rostrata Family Centre and Prendwick Pavilion building upgrades. The officer's recommendation appears on screen and, as mentioned earlier, also on page 91. Deputy Mayor, was that the one you declared an interest for or not? That's not the one? Okay, thank you. Can I have a mover for that item, please? Councillor Kunze, thank you. A seconder. Deputy Mayor. Councillor Kunze.
Yeah, I speak in favour of the officer recommendation. I think the tender and bringing these two projects together would provide a great outcome. I know the people involved in the Rostrata Family Centre are extremely excited for this to have come to council and to actually be on the premises of the development starting, because what this will mean to them, the extra services once they get an expanded capacity will mean a lot to them. They'll be able to provide a lot of services for the local community, but not just in Willetton, but broader, mental health services, a whole suite of programs. And this is what they've been waiting for some time. I thank staff for their work on it thus far and look forward to this project commencing and a new facility, well, two new facilities in retrospect, being delivered later this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I echo the comments of Councillor Kunze and support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against? I take it you're not against?
Not against.
Thank you.
So I just have a question.
Yes, of course.
When do we expect the extension of the Rostrata Family Centre and Prendwick Pavilion building renewal to take place, and how long is it anticipated to take?
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Subject to Council endorsing the recommendation, we hope to execute the contract documents within a couple of weeks, and the project would commence soon after. I think from memory, the first part of the project is about a 9-month duration, but I'll confirm offline with the elected members on the timeframes for the delivery of both projects. Councillor Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Second. Councillors will put the matter to the vote unless anybody else wishes to speak on it. Thank you.
Motion IE 00224 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you. We move to IE 003 of 24, the report title being Tender FM 035.500 for the Canning Vale Pavilion building upgrade. The officer's recommendation is on screen. It also appears on page 105 of tonight's printed agenda. Can I have a mover, please, for that item? I'll move it from the chair. Can I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. I have nothing to add. I support the officer's recommendation. Deputy Mayor.
As do I. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
We're all so keen. We're all so keen. Anyone wish to speak on or against the Canning Vale Pavilion tender item? Thank you, councillors. Let's put it to the vote.
Motion IE 003-24 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
We move to item 13.5. Dr. Sarah McQuaid is the responsible officer. She is the Director for Customer and Community. The item is CO1 of 24. It's the draft reconciliation strategy for 2024. The officer's recommendation is on screen and it appears on page 114 of tonight's agenda. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Page, you're just about to pulled your arm out of the socket, then it's shot up so quickly. Seconder would be our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Page.
I just want to say, obviously, I'm very much in favour of this motion. I really want to acknowledge a lot of really, really good work and engagement with the local community that the community team has done. And I think that the action plan is very much achievable and very good goals for us to have going forward. And yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the work that's gone into this. It's not been a small task.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I echo the comments of Councillor Page, and I'd also like to thank staff's patience. I know this has taken a while to get here, but I think that we've definitely got a good, robust document here that I'm very confident that we can implement. So thank you, and I hope everybody supports this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? Thank you. We shall put the matter to the vote.
Motion CO 001-24 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you. CO 002 of 24, the report title being DLGSC CNLP 2024-25 grant applications for Ranford Oval Sports lighting installation and the Rossmoyne Bowling Club lighting upgrade. Just to refresh memories, the Deputy Mayor did declare a conflict appropriately earlier in the piece in relation to her being a social member of the Rossmoyne Bowling Club. It's only an impartiality and she's not required to leave the room. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for raising that earlier. Can I have a mover, please, for this item? Councillor Kunza, thank you. Seconder. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Kunza.
No, I'm very much in favour of the officer recommendation and I hope we're successful. It's great to see so many lighting projects across the city being investigated and over time delivered, because it's long been an issue for many sporting clubs, and it would be fantastic when everyone has adequate lighting, and fingers crossed these grant applications are successful.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I support the officer's recommendation. I have nothing to add. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak for or against it? Thank you. Let's put the item to the vote.
Motion CO 002-24 has been carried unanimously, all 11 in favour.
Thank you. We have dealt with the item at item 14 this evening. We move to 15, which is urgent business. There is none. At item 16, confidential matters this evening, there are none. At item 17, there being no further business, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance this evening. I declare the ordinary council meeting closed, the time now being 7:27 p.m. And I thank you all for your attendance. Good night.